of the Sadiq, of the rabbi. Usually it's a rabbi. Then there are other private mixed gender performances. So singing while preparing matzah. This is not done anymore, but it used to be done where they would close off the communal oven and sing inside of this communal oven while they were preparing matzah. There's a psalm that would be sung, but also other Passover songs and songs from the Haggadah. Then there are home-based rituals like Passover and Shabbat. Here we have the Yehi Ratzon ritual, which we'll do parts of tonight. But that, interestingly enough, is not sung, it's recited. So another thing that I think is important and which forms a very central part of the high holiday ritual in Morocco is not just the singing part of the ritual, but this sonic pillow, we can call, of recitation and like this mass of sound of people in the synagogue reciting the prayers and prayers that are known very well and that go over and over, as in it's almost like a weaving of sound of all these words that people know. And the words are usually words like al chet shechatanu, right? For the sin that I've done, which is done in synagogues all over the world. But then there are others, timchol v'tislach, forgive me and clean it off, tislach v'timchol, and it becomes this call and response between the person leading the prayers and the congregation, which is, it's really like a sonic meditation. And I've been thinking about this these days just because we won't have any of this year, right? Thank you, COVID, for taking away our synagogues. And so this whole sonic world, we still have our own selves and our own prayer books, but not these sound waves that you are kind of bathed in during this very mesmerizing kind of embodied way of using words and repetition and sound, and in a very, to an ear that doesn't really understand it, it sounds very messy and kind of unorganized, like everybody says it at their own time and everybody's kind of doing their own thing, and it's all these layers of voices and sounds that are coming in and out. It's very heterophonic, so it's not, organized, that people don't say amen when they're supposed to, like everybody's just kind of, it's all this this very active and dynamic living being of sound, which I think actually creates this aura around the text, but also around the worshiper, which creates a dynamic relationship to the prayer. It's not like, I am a passive recipient of the prayer and we all say amen, but it's this push and pull and loud and soft. And then you have, of course, that one person that always screams it out, and then the other person that whispers it, and the different timbres, and it's all very dynamic, I guess, is the best word that I can think for. But really is it's like the sounds that have been described of when people or young students are studying Talmud, right? You walk into one of those huge yeshivas in Israel and they're studying Talmud, and it's a cacophony. It's a constant. Well, this is the way that the high holiday prayers are. It's this constant cacophony, and then you have the songs that you all sing in one voice, and then you go back to this cacophony. So it has its cycles of punctuation and of difference, which I think is important to think of, not just about what it is that the words are that we're saying, but what is the, for better of a better word, for the vibe, the sonic vibe that is accompanying the worshipers throughout the day or throughout the whole morning prayer. So it has these expansions into this larger world, and then it'll constrict where everybody sings more or less in one voice in some of these songs that we're going to look at, and then goes back. And then you have the shaliach sibur, you have the leader that sometimes will lead in one voice, and then it'll go back to this whole huge cacophony. So we really have this this journey, this sonic journey, that is not just about the words that are being said, but the manner in which those words are sung, said, recited, whispered, screamed, shouted, cried, the whole 9 yards. Okay, then we're back to the private mixed gender, private home concerts, which are still done until today, singing on the bus of the pilgrimage. So sometimes people go together on a bus, and that's an important part of singing in community. And then we have the separate gender parties, like the mikvah parties, home-based women's gatherings, which still happen until today, quotidian music making, singing to the children, singing while cooking, singing while cleaning. These, I think, everybody in the world does. But they're important moments because they're moments when certain songs are repeated and start to go into the sonic world of the next generation. And then also there are songs during labor. So this is important. There are certain songs that are done during labor. So let's see, here we go to the next image. So here, for example, is a concert that happened recently at one of the Jewish clubs in Casablanca. And you see one of a very, very famous older singer, Jewish singer called Lchaim, who has a kippah on, which he would probably not do if he wasn't in the Jewish club. And the other man that's singing is a Muslim singer. And he's singing actually a song to a tzaddik, one of the pilgrimage songs. So it's interesting because here he's kind of crossing this religious line, which up to very recently would usually not be crossed by Muslim singers, but now more and more, because of the growing Israeli tourist kind of trade into Morocco, there are many groups of Israeli tourists, and they're a good market to perform to sell, performances to. So, and there are not that many Jewish singers. So now some of the Muslims are learning some of these songs, but then that spills over into the radio and the television, as I showed you before, and public concerts that are also for local audiences. Then we have, this is an image from one of the coastal cities of Morocco called Larache, and it's the Shabbat before the wedding of a young woman in the 1960s. And as you see, she's surrounded by women. They have the Moroccan tea in the center with a sinia, and they at this point they would probably then be singing wedding songs to her after the camera. And this photograph is a photograph of the bride on the night before her wedding, of the henna, and where she would also be sung to, because as you see the covers that are behind her, the Torah covers that are behind her actually have some of the same embroideries that her own dress has. And so on that night, the bride is actually the symbol of the Torah. She becomes an embodied Torah, and she's processed around the party, which is basically the congregation, as in the same manner that a Sefer Torah is congregated or is processed on Simchat Torah, on the night of Simchat Torah. and some of the same songs that are sung on Simchat Torah to the Torah are sung to the bride on that night, because she has become the Lchaim, right, the tree of life. And on the dress, there's actually an embroidery of the tree of life that needs to be placed close to where her ovaries are, because it is actually her ovaries that will then bring forth the next generation. We don't think about the groom. The groom doesn't have a special dress or special tree of anything. Interestingly, it's really falls on the bride as the center of fertility and transmission and continuity for the whole community. So she is sung to as a Torah, and she's related to as a Torah. And that's a whole other talk, because that's part of the reason that there is such a strict control over young women's sexuality. And so the sung repertoire actually really underlines that as well, the texts that people are singing about. Okay, so this is a private home. It's a party at a private home, and this is a very famous singer, Jewish singer, with his Muslim band. So this is another thing that's important to know, is that Jews and Muslims are constantly making music together until today, and the repertoire is often the same. And sometimes the tunes to the songs that come into the synagogue are actually from this shared Jewish-Muslim repertoire, bringing in that part of their public world into the more private liturgical sphere. Note that the liturgical sphere is private. It's a private Jewish, but it is actually a public Jewish, right? It's the general group, but inside of the Moroccan population, it is quite closed. And synagogues are not really open to Muslims to come for the prayer. It's kind of an unspoken rule. Not that they wouldn't be able to come, but it's like an invisible frontier that does not get crossed. This photograph I wanted to show you because it's actually a very famous Jewish singer, Zohra El-Fassia, if you can see her, she's standing. And she was singing a street concert, basically, on the streets of Casablanca in 1961, I believe it was. And it was for the La Fête du Trône, which is the commemoration of the coronation of the king. So it's about a public manifestation of loyalty to the monarchy. And here she is singing, and you see that the audience is, it's the Moroccan, it's not just the Jews, right? It's a mixed Moroccan audience. And many of these repertoires are passed on through songbooks. And we have a copy here of a songbook that was written in Gibraltar by a Jew from Tétouan, and he later went to Egypt. So another thing that's important to know is that, and it's also in Judeo-Spanish, right? So languages, migrations, circulation of texts is very important, and thus circulation of ideas and of identities. So, so what I want to finish with on this visual part is looking at, this is a table that I've created with the research that I've done, trying to explain how Moroccan Jews work on this sonic world through all their different layers of identities that they're working through. So that very center dot that says local core repertoire will be the local repertoire in usually in Judeo-Arabic, in Judeo-Spanish, in Judeo-Berber, Judeo-Amazigh, but also some of it will be the very melodies that you're synagogue sings for certain holidays. So some of the songs that we're going to do there. Then we have the general Jewish world, which is a connection to, and this one has gradations, right? So it might have a connection to certain parts of other cities in Morocco. They share repertoires, but then you have other Sephardi groups that share repertoires, other Mizrahi groups, and then with the general Jewish world, including Ashkenazim, like songs like Hevenu Shalom and things like that. Then we go out to a frontier, which is the Moroccan frontier, where we have popular Moroccan songs that are a part of their sonic world. And then we have a French and Spanish frontier where they'll sing songs like of Edith Piaf or of Sarita Montiel, flamenco. And sometimes these actually come before the Moroccan layer, just as sometimes the general Jewish world repertoires go outside of the French and Spanish and outside of the Moroccan. It depends which one is more important at that time. And then on the very, very last frontier, we have a general international repertoire, which is, the Beatles and samba and everything else that actually even sometimes comes into certain parts of pilgrimage singing, of synagogue on occasion, but more rarely, and definitely in the home and in private parties. So as part of the relating to each other. So that is where I want to leave you with this this screen share. Let me do this now. Stop share. Yes, and we are here now. Okay, it's very strange for me to see you and not hear you all. Usually when I do these, I actually can not see or hear anybody, but now I can see you all, but I can't hear you. So, so what I want to start with is, I want to start with the Yehi Ratzon. So, and I didn't send you a copy of this, but if anybody wants these, so there's this little book that is made by the Jewish community of Morocco. Well, it's a family that makes it in memory of their father. And it has all the Jewish holidays, everything, the kosher butcher, the kosher schools. It's basically your little Jewish encyclopedia from Morocco. And it has certain brachot. And one of them is the Seder of Rosh Hashanah. So this is the one that we always pull out. Sometimes we pull out the Siddur, but we usually use the Dahan family thing. And it's interesting because it's all in Hebrew and French. So so it says pomme and miel. So one of the things, so we start obviously with, well, first of all, we'll do the kiddush, right? And the kiddush on Friday night, well, this Friday night it'll be, but on Rosh Hashanah is on white wine, because everything on Rosh Hashanah should be white. That way we have a white year, a clear year. So another thing, like, yes, oh, okay, so Seth is showing his white wine there. So also no dark raisins, no prunes, nothing that's black should be on the plates. So everything should be white. And nothing that's grilled should be cooked on Rosh Hashanah because of the Akedah, because of the story of the binding of Isaac. So because then, if not, then it could be like a foreshadowing of being grilled during the year. Nothing, and no nuts, because the gematria, the numerology of nuts is the same as chet. So egoz equals chet, which is sin. So no nuts. So the only nuts that can be eaten on Rosh Hashanah are almonds. So there's this whole protocol for what can be. Oh, I like that. That's it. Tofu. Tofu can be eaten, yes, because it's white. So this whole protocol of eating and of imbibing only things that will bring blessing on the days of Rosh Hashanah. It's not just what comes out of our mouth, right? But it's also what comes in, and how that, and even how we prepare it, because we're not allowed to grill, right? So all that then is a way of inscribing the blessings into the body itself. So you inscribe them by being surrounded by this sonic world, and you inscribe them by having your own ingestion of blessed foods that will nourish your body and your soul. And so so the other thing is that the apple is not just dipped in honey, but it can also be dipped in sugar. So there are little plates with honey and also with sugar. And so then I'm going to actually dip my apple in sugar right now. And this one probably everybody knows, because but it basically, what it says is that this year shall be Techadesh Alenu. It should be renewed for us, for goodness and sweetness, from the beginning of the year until the end of the year. And this beginning we have at the very top, and then we also have it at the very bottom with the head of the fish, right? So that the head of the fish at the end, we say, may you be at the head of the year and not at the tail. So at the beginning we say this, right? Yehi ratzon milefanecha Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elokei avotenu, shetechadesh alenu shana tova umetuka mereshit hashana ve'ad acharit hashana. Excuse me, this is my midnight snack. The next are the poireaux, which is the Swiss chard, which I did not cook, but I believe that Seth has some that he can show us. And this basically, you would cook it and then just put sugar and cinnamon on it. And what it says is that karetu oivecha vesonecha mikol mevakshei ra'atenu. So may our enemies and anybody that hates us be no, your enemies and anybody that hates you should be cut off. So ikaretu, right, cut off. So then we have dates. Okay, I won't continue eating because then I won't be able to sing or speak. And the dates, Yitamu hataim min haaretz urchame od ename barchi nafshi et Adonai, hallelujah. Uvechasdecha tasmit ve'avdecha, kol sorerei nafshi ki ani avdecha. So may you erase sins from the earth. So in the eating of this, then we're going to erase sins. And anybody that hates me should be also erased, because I am your servant. We have the leeks, right? I have here my cooked leek. I'll show it to you right here. Okay. And this Yehira. So what I can do actually is I'll send you a copy of this. So whoever would like to do them, but you can also find them online if anybody's interested. And we have, so basically the next ones are all a matter of saying, may it be cut off. May sin be cut off. May our enemies be cut off. This one, which in some people are black-eyed peas, but here we use sesame seeds in sugar. And this is may our merits be as sesame seeds, be as numerous as sesame seeds. And then we have another one like that, which is the rimon, the pomegranate. May our merits be as much as the seeds of a pomegranate. And then we have the head of the fish, where we say, well, sometimes we have actually the head of a mouton, of a lamb, a lamb's head. Some families actually will have the lamb's head, because it's about, Rosh Hashanah is about Akedat Yitzchak, right? It's about the binding of Isaac. And that's why Et Sharei Ratzon, that song about the binding of Isaac, is such a central part of it. So here we have this song that talks about the ultimate sacrifice that this father was about to do. And so we have the head of the mouton on the table. And it says, may we be the head and not the tail, and remember what Isaac did. So we're telling God, remember what Isaac did. So because of that, we should be protected. And then the head of the mouton, of the poisson, of the fish, then says, may our merits also become as numerous as fish. So here we have the sesame, the pomegranate, and the fish that are about prolonging the merits. And it's this numerous, which actually goes back to what we were talking about, the sonic issue of the numerous voices. So this is like a moment of the numerous multiplicity, right? And then the coming together. So what I'd like to do is to do some singing with you. So I think that we might need to unmute now. Oh, what did Isaac do? Isaac basically said to his father, Isaac was 40 years old, so he knew what was happening. And this is the Midrash, right? He said to his father, you can bind me, but you have to bind me because I might flinch. And if I flinch, then it won't be kosher. It won't be a kosher sacrifice. So, and that is what this song, Et Sharei Ratzon, tells us, which is, I invite you to look it up if you don't know it, to look up a translation, which I unfortunately don't have my my Rosh Hashanah Siddur, so I actually took out a 14th century facsimile of a Rosh Hashanah Siddur from the library, which I had to go with a mask to collect, and it was like a whole thing. But my translation, actually, I think it's the synagogue in Los Angeles, the Sephardi synagogue in Los Angeles, made a Rosh Hashanah Siddur that has a great translation of Et Sharei Ratzon. So that would be great for, oh, this is the final song on the sheet. Okay, I'm trying to see. Should we start with this? Oh, when is the Seder done? Before Rosh Hashanah? No, the Seder is done on both nights of Rosh Hashanah, and it's done right after the Kiddush. So you say Kiddush, then you do the Seder, then you wash your hands, you do Netilat Yadayim, and then you eat the meal. But really the crux of Rosh Hashanah, of the meals of Rosh Hashanah on the evenings, are the Seder. So, okay, so does everybody have the song sheet? You have access to it. What I would like to do, I'm actually going to write out, for those of you that are not Hebrew readers, I'm going to write down the Sola Pool also has, okay, great. The banana, one more bracha on the banana. You know, I've heard
Vanessa,
about
would
that.
you like me to screen share the song sheet?
Yeah, that's good. But I also wanted to write.
That would be great if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can write in the chat while I screen share the song sheet.
Is there any
Leah,
Ladino
the link
in
you
that?
sent, was not for the song sheet.
I sent another link that is the song sheet.
Sorry, thanks.
Is
Okay,
there
so
any
here
Ladino?
I just wrote out the refrain.
Yeah.
And the refrain goes, Oked vehanekad vehamizbeach. Okay, you can see it clearly now. So this is the Moroccan melody. So let's just sing the refrain
It's
together.
a little small to read if we could enlarge it a little more.
That's as big as I can make it.
Okay, thank you.
Oked vehanekad vehamizbeach. So I'll sing 2 words and then we'll have it come back so we can do a little back and forth, so that we know at least that we can sing that one line, which is the one that repeats over and over and over. Oked vehanekad vehamizbeach. Oked vehanekad. So oked is the sacrifice, vehaneekad, and the sacrificed, vehamizbeach, and the altar. So it's an incredibly moving piyut by Rabbi Yehuda ben Shmuel ibn Abbas, as you see, that is sung in Sephardi congregations around the world, and it's right before the shofar. It's right before the blowing of the shofar. So this, if you're arriving late to synagogue and you arrive when they're singing this, you know that you didn't miss the shofar, right? So this is, it's basically telling the story of the feeling of Abraham, the feeling of Sarah, the feeling of Isaac, and what ends up happening, and this ultimate self-sacrifice. And so on the merit of this, we're asking God to listen to our prayers, to hear our prayers. And that's why right after that, we blow the shofar, because that's, of course, the ram's horn, which ended up being the sacrifice that stood in for Isaac instead of Isaac being sacrificed at the 11th hour, right? At the very last minute. So, Itshare ratzon להיפתח, יום אהיה כפיי לאל שוטח, אנא זכור נא לי ביום הוכח, עוקד והנקד והמזבח. So every time I point, I would like everybody to join in, please. באחרית נסע בסוף העשרה, הבן אשר נולד לך משרה. אם נפשך בועד מאוד נקשרה, קום הלהו לי לעולם ברא. על הר אשר כבוד לך זורח, עוקד והנקד
והמזבח.
אמר לשרה כי המודך יצחק, גדל ולעולמך עבודת שחק. הלך והורהו אשר לא אלחק, אמרה לך אדון אבל אל תרחק. אנא יהי לבך ואל בוטח, עוקד
והנקד והמזבח.
So I'll leave it here, but I think you have the melody now in your ear. What I would like to do actually is to go back to the very first stanza and to try to at least sing those 4 lines, since you know the melody now. It's basically a 2-line melody that repeats. and maybe we can actually sing a little bit of this together.
We,
So here we go.
if we sing all together, it's going to be a horrible cacophony.
It doesn't matter. That's the way that these synagogue services are.
Okay?
This is part of the heterophony of Moroccan singing. However, this is one of the songs that everybody sings together, but it doesn't matter. I want us to have this experience of doing it all together. So whoever would like to join in, please, it would be wonderful. Okay, so now everybody has this song sheet. Some of you might have translations
Honey,
and
can I call you back in just a few minutes? I'm just on a little
transliteration. And so, am I unmuted? Yes. And so that's to be continued at your leisure and interest, maybe on Rosh Hashanah, maybe just during the Yamim Noraim. It's also sung on Yom Kippur, of course, because on Yom Kippur we're reminding God, of all that our ancestors have done and how we stand on their shoulders. And so, so it's interesting because it's not, the singing isn't of the piyutim, the prayers are obviously to God, but the piyutim are often to each other, right? As in reminding ourselves what we need to be praying for, what we're yearning for, what we think of. But here it's a very direct reminder to God of what the Jewish people have done for God. So, so that's kind of an interesting attitude around the music. Okay, so maybe the next thing, I'm not sure what my time is. Yeah, okay. So this is this big facsimile that I'm going to try to pray from on Rosh Hashanah, since it's the only thing. Yes, and so this is the image I wanted to show you from this one, because this is one of the cacophony that I believe is also pretty similarly in the Ashkenazi Siddur, if I can remember from my my Happy Minion days in Los Angeles. But we're here, we're all saying these al chet shechatanu, right? Be'ones al chet shechatanu, beratzon al chet shechatanu, beseter al chet shechatanu. And so this sonic whispering and kind of like urgent praying, saying to God, so, and the ones that require korban, right, that require a sacrifice, and the ones that we've done that require, all the different punishments, may we be cleansed of all of those. May it all be washed away. May it all be gone. And so, so there's another prayer that follows this, which I believe I did not send you, but it's one of really the great hits of Sephardi Moroccan singing, and it's called Mi El Kamocha. Mi El Kamocha. So I believe that here, I'll write it again in the chat. It basically means who is like you? Mi El Kamocha. Or who is a God like you, right? And the refrain is Mi El Kamocha, right? So I'll sing it now. We can all do that together. Mi El Kamocha, Mi El Kamocha.
Mi el kamocha.
Mi adir venahor bo mi el kamocha amukot do dover tzedakot mi el kamocha adur bilbusho zolato mi el kamocha זוכר חסידים חונן דלי מי אל כמוך יושב המים מי אל כמוך. So this is a moment when, after reciting all the sins and saying, you know, and these are the punishments that should happen for these sins, and this is really what we merit, but on this moment, you, who is like you, because you are going to wash all this away. And so this is why the melody, I think, is this rousing, very excited kind of anthem where the congregation comes together and repeats this who is like you in one voice, after this whole cacophony of, you know, and we have done all these terrible things, and, you know, each one of us, you know, in knowledge and not knowledge, and with marat ayn, you know, looking badly and doing this, and with our eyes and with our feet and with our tongues and with this and with our mouth, but who is like you? So this is a moment where we see very much this kind of spiritual movement of the sound and of the prayer and of the songs, and what ends up becoming a song is this moment of joy, right? The other one that I had sent, well, I sent two other ones, right? Adon Aslichot, which is, I think am I going backwards from what I sent you? So let me just have a little cup of
Have it
tea.
on the screen. It's fine.
So this is another one that has a very similar melodic counterpoint, which I think is really interesting, because what's in bold is Chatanu lefanecha rachem alenu. Chatanu, we have sinned upon you, have mercy on us. Here, let me transliterate it in the chat. Chatanu lefanecha rachem alenu. Okay. But actually here we're saying, you know, we sinned unto you, have mercy on us. And it's this rousing anthem melody. Adon aselichot bochen levavot gole amukot dover sedakot chatanu lefanecha rachem aleinu Adur beniflaot vatik benechamot ocher beritzavot oker kelayot טוב ומיטיב לבריות, יודע כל מסתרות, כובש עוונות, כובש צדקות, מלא זכויות, בורא תהילות, סולח עוונות, עונה בצרות, כל ישובות Sofe Ayot Ore Hatorot Roche Mea Tefilot Bemi Peot Ata Really, you hear this? It's Hatanu lefanecha we have sinned before you. Have mercy upon us. I mean, it's kind of crazy. It seems it's like you don't sing "We've sinned upon you" like this in this happy, rousing anthem melody, but you do. So this is when you understand what you're saying, then you start to think, well, why am I singing it in this kind of a melody? But it's also, it's actually, the same thing that Kurt Weill did with Bertolt Brecht in their very intense songs about the war, where they had these rousing melodies to sing about these like tragic events and the suffering and because it makes it much more. I think it makes it a lot more poignant, and the contrast actually is shocking for the singer and the listener. And it's that sonic contrast, that rupture between what the sound sounds like and what the words are saying, that awakens the listener, and that invites you to actually feel it in a much deeper place. So then we have El Nora Alila, which is really for Yom Kippur, but it's another one. It's sung at the opening of the Ne'ilah, and this one I know that a lot of congregations around the world are doing it now, even if it's not coming from their tradition. So I would say, now I'm going to say, somewhat ignore the sheet music, because I'm not going to sing it exactly like this. I'm going to sing it the way that the synagogue in Casablanca sings it. And they don't sing it like this, but follow along on the words. And I'm sorry that I don't have the full text for you, but I think that it can be found quite easily. So the refrain goes, and it's basically at the very last moment before the sun goes down on Yom Kippur. This is actually, the Ne'ilah is the last service, right? It's the moment when everybody that can in Morocco goes to synagogue. So many people won't go the night before if it's hard for them to fast. Usually people will fast over anything else. So even somebody that's very, very, very old, like there was a lady, well, there are actually two very good friends of mine that are both ladies that are over 100, and at different periods of time. One of them now is 102, may she live to 120, and the other one actually passed away right at 100, but they still fast on Yom Kippur. And so they won't leave the house. They don't leave, and they'll stay in bed almost the whole day, but they fast. So this song is that last kind of pleading, and when people are singing this El Nora Alila, and the doors of the Eichal are open, it actually is such an emotional moment that just even remembering it makes me get emotional. It's intense. You see 150, 200 people, almost all dressed in white, pleading, crying. May we merit this year to be able to do this in our own homes, and to have the answers come. Oof. So another rousing melody. It goes like this. El Nora Alila, El Nora Alila, Hamzilanu Mechila, Bisha'ata Neila, El Nora Alila, El Nora Alila, Hamzilanu Mechila, Bisha'ata Neila, מתי מספר קרואים לחיים נוסעים ומסלדים בחילה בשעת הנעילה אל נורא עלילה, אל נורא עלילה חמסי לנו משילה מחילה בשעת הנעילה שופכים לך נפשם מחי פשעים קשחן וחמסי מחילה בשעת הנעילה אל נורא עלילה, אל נורא עלילה חמזי לנו מחילה בשעת הנעילה, היה לכם לסתרם וחצי לממרם, ומנתמם להוז לגילה בשעת הנעילה, אל נורא עלילה, אל נורא עלילה, חמזי לנו מחילה בשעת הנעילה. חונותם ורחם וכל לוחץ ולוחם, עושה בהם בלילה בשעת הנעילה, אל נורא עלילה, אל נורא עלילה, חמזי לנו מחילה בשעת הנעילה. It really goes that fast. So it's the end. Let's see, I'm trying to see here. Will there be a Sephardi synagogue that'll do the prayers on Zoom? I don't know. Everybody, because so Rosh Hashanah is actually considered it's interesting because it's not really, I mean, it's a new year, but it's not really a party, right? It's a very intense day because your future is basically on the line, and the future of every living being. So so people are actually very, very strict about the constraints of the holiday. And this year it falls on Rosh Hashanah, on Shabbat, on top of it. So we won't even hear the shofar on the first day, right? So anyway, it's this, but there might be, I wonder, I don't know, I wonder if maybe there's a Sephardi synagogue, maybe Sephardi temple in Los Angeles.
I think so. I think that that's what I was able to glean from a different Los Angeles Jewish type of communal evening last night. So one could Google and find out what's going on there. Vanessa, questions that were posed along the way early on basically all mean that we have to have you back. People are curious about the types of pilgrimages, where and who makes them, henna parties, which I think would be wonderful to do on Zoom, and whether also the open question, if and assuming that Jews and Muslims are or become friendly in Morocco, do they attend one another's worship? As in, you know, inviting your Arab friend to your kid's bar mitzvah.
Yes, to bar mitzvah, they will come, but most often it's actually only the Muslims that are very, very, very close to the family that will come to the synagogue.
Okay.
The others will be invited to the party, maybe, but not to the synagogue service. For example, for the Brit Milah of my children, I was actually told, you know, we don't really invite Muslims to this. So there are certain ceremonies that that stay completely inside of the core. There are certain families that will actually not invite a non-Jew to their Shabbat table, to their Seder as well. Yeah, so it's interesting. It also depends on families, and those strictures depend on certain levels of religiosity, but it also depends on the cities or or the places that they came from. So very often, actually, Jews would share the dafina with the Muslim neighbors, right? But not necessarily to coming and eating at the table with them, but they'd say, "Oh, look, here is," and then they give them the dafina, right? So they give them, because Muslims really love this, the cholent, the Moroccan version of cholent, right? But other than that, there are to weddings. Yes, there will be Muslims that will come, not usually to the henna party, to that's a very private inner affair, and which will have family members flying in from all over the world often. So it's interesting how all these different elements, work, where there are portals and there are openings, but they're also doors. And I actually think that it's because of the clear frontiers that exist, that this coexistence, which is not really the ideal world, but this living together has actually really worked, because everybody has their own space, but they also have shared spaces. So everybody can actually feel in their own space that they are who they are, and that they're doing what they have to do, and that and what they want to do, and what their ancestors, and they don't feel that they have to perform, or that they have to impress, or that they have to do anything. But because it's it's a minority, and the Jewish minority today is really, it's a minute minority, so it's become a little bit more enclosed, actually, than it might have been 60 years ago, when there was a much larger Jewish population. So that also plays into it as well. So
Okay, friends. Well, we are nearly at the end. I want to thank people from around the world. I know we do have one representative of Israel who is happily quarantining with mom. So welcome, Michal Pier from Israel. And we're glad that we've seen all other places, from Vanessa, of course, in Great Britain, and across the United States, not just our friends here in Greater Denver, and yes, even in Wyoming, who are here for tonight. Thank you so much. And if you've got questions, you can still put them in the chat for the next few minutes. We're thrilled that you've all been taking time to be part of this evening, and we look forward to seeing you during Chol HaMoed Sukkot, with our next presentation of Lchaim, a taste of Jewish music from, in this case, India, with special guest Rachel Matzliach. Kol Tuv, everyone. Happy New Year.
Could I mention something? Could I mention something?
And now go back to sleep, Vanessa.
Curtis wants
Yeah.
to say something.
Could I mention something before we go?
I mean, Ron.
That courtesy to Vanessa Paloma, in the Jewish Learning Channel, there are a series of films on Moroccan Jewish life, all of which include singing, from the Brit Milah to pilgrimage songs to a number of other ritual events. So it's on jewishlearningchannel.com, and you can actually see some of the things that Vanessa was talking about tonight in film. Thanks.
Thank you.
And thanks to Vanessa for making it possible for these films to happen. Yeah.
thanks to all of you for being
Vanessa.
here, and yeah, and for giving me my Ne'ilah moment. I had a
Yeah.
moment of Ne'ilah here before. Amazing.
All the best, everybody. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you,
Bye, y'all.
Ron, for making the introduction.
Okay.
Shana Tovat, everyone.
It'll be recorded. You can watch it later if you missed anything. Have a great night or morning, everyone. Take care.